hang on. Oh, I am there. I was going to say that looks a little bit wrong. Let's do that. Great. Good evening, everybody, and how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 1st of June, 2025. Sun has been shining once again here in Littlehampton. Hope you're all well. Hope you're having a great weekend. Hope you've had a great week. Lovely to see you all here once again. Now, today we are going to be talking about show gardens, which is something that I think we need to talk about. Well, it's show garden season, isn't it? There's a lot of show gardens going on in certain shows, and I want to find out. Well, I've got a few questions to ask you, but are they inspiration or an illusion? That's the overriding question. But before that, a couple of things. First of all, we're going to go through who is here today, but we had no mission last week, so I haven't came up or had a mission to do this week. What I've come up with is a way of choosing missions each week. So if anybody has an idea for a mission, all you've got to do is put hashtag mission, which I have got a thing running across the bottom of the screen, hashtag mission in the chat, and it goes into a drawer. Which we'll come up with at the end of the show. So you got to hold on till right at the end for that. Added to that, so what else did I want to say? I can't remember. It'll come to me as we go on. Let's see who we've got joining us tonight. We have got Rob Allotment Garden saying we are a very good evening to one and all. Good evening to you. Turbo Streamers there saying good evening, Veg Podcasters. Good evening to you. Rob and Turbo Stream have been having a chat. Actually, Rob's just got home from being in the pub since 3 p.m. And Turbo Stream says, saw arms, Rob, been trimming a 60-foot privet hedge. Admitted defeat, and next year we'll get someone to cut it. Yeah, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it is easier to get somebody to cut it. Stuart Jackson has joined. Evening, Richard and Veg Army. Hope you're all well and enjoying our gardens. Good evening to you. Jenny Hullett is there saying hello, everyone. Good evening to you. Hargrave Gas is there. Evening all. Hope you've had a good week. I feel like I'm getting back into the growing groove, which is great. Long may it continue. I'm pleased to hear that. Very pleased to hear that. Kate is there saying good evening, Veg Army. Good evening to you. Rob says they've had 3 minutes of rain today. That's 3 minutes of less watering for you, isn't it? Rob says don't like show gardens. To me, they are false. This is what I want to get into. Anna Jones says evening, gardeners. Nicola is there saying evening, Richard and all. Good evening to you. What else have we got? Nathan is there saying evening all. Good evening to you. And we better check actually Instagram, because I have gone live on Instagram as well. Let's make sure that's actually running. Nothing going on just yet. Hopefully, if I can bring this screen over here, it will work okay. I've noticed it was a bit of a problem. That should do okay. Anyway, so show gardens. Now, this is something that I've made a few notes about, and I want to talk to you about tonight. Now, show gardens are a very popular thing at the moment. We are going through show season. We had RHS Chelsea last week. Gardeners World Live is a couple of weeks ago. We've had Gardeners World Spring Fair at the beginning of May, and there's lots more going on. Now, for me, show gardens are there to do a very particular need. They are there to show off. Certain garden creators or people within the industry are trying to get work by showing off their gardens and their skills. So while these gardens are completely false, they're faux pas, they are there for a very good reason. But can they inspire, or do you find them a bit of an illusion? So my first question, really, I think the best place to say is, have you ever visited a show garden like RHS Chelsea or Gardeners World Live? Have you ever visited them, and did you find any inspiration at all from it? What have we got going on? So over on Instagram, Matt Saunders 7330 has joined. Welcome along. It looks like a frozen day. Stuart says, show gardens. One thing I remember is you need twice as many plants as you think. That's useful to know. Now, there is a bit of a point behind tonight's show. I've been approached about building or collaborating, on a show garden at Gardeners World Spring Fair. Now, it's going to be very much an edible garden. Everything in there is going to be edible, and it's going to be done on a very, very tight budget, what we would call a very realistic budget. But at the same time, I want it to do well. So I'm kind of taking on what you guys want from a show garden as well, what you think of them as well. Call this a bit of market research. I don't know what's going on today. The screen just seems really funny compared to usual. Turbo Stream says, I am jolly annoyed this week. I discovered one of my butternut squash plants has been dug up, pulled on Friday. Must be a bird as the soil was intact. Thankfully, I have one spare, but still annoying. It is annoying when it happens. It's a common thing at the moment. We're having troubles with birds and things like that, pulling up our plants and getting hold of them. It's nature, unfortunately. It's just unfortunately, what we have to cope with sometimes. Stuart says, I've got to move this screen. I can't work like that. It's too difficult to see what's going on. Stuart Jackson says, again, show guns, I think they should be reused afterwards. Again, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Hargrave Gas says, I've seen a few show gardens. They seem to be mainly flowers. However, the few veg ones that I've seen don't seem real. What is it that doesn't seem real? What is it that you feel doesn't make them seem real? Now, I have to admit, at all the shows I go to, I don't see many veg gardens. The National Veg Society normally does a vegetable garden, but to me, it's nothing exciting. They do pretty much the same display every year. But what is it in particular that you would want to see in a vegetable-based show garden? That's another question to ask there, isn't it? Rob says, I am about $500,000 short of paying for someone to build me a show garden. Well, Chelsea, can be £1 million spent on a show garden. There is a lot of money that goes into these show gardens. This is why I don't want to run them into the ground. They are there for a very specific reason. They are there for the people to try and get work. They're trying to show off their talents so they can get work. These are usually garden designers. They design it in order to try and get work. My collaboration next year, if it goes ahead, and it's a big if, of course, but if it goes ahead, we could well end up making a vegetable garden that shows off all our talents, but also inspires people to grow their own food, which is what we want. Jenny says, for me, there are show gardens and show gardens, e.g. Chelsea is over the top, but you can take snippets of it. Gardeners World Live has gardens you can recreate similar home. Take inspiration from and don't try to copy. That's actually answering the overriding question. Inspiration, but not copy. And I agree with that. Turbo Stream says, I'm looking at my stash of gardening magazines for inspiration as I want to remodel my home garden. So perhaps I will plump for inspiration on show gardens. This is exactly what I'm saying. You know, we often, and I'm guilty of this, I slate show gardens for not being realistic. But actually, if you are looking at remodeling your garden, where do you get your inspiration from? What is it that gives you an idea of what to do? And for me, show gardens are one of those. Just taking a swig of coffee. Let's have a quick check on Instagram as well. I don't know what's going on in Instagram, actually. It looks like I've frozen. Nicholas says, I don't like the use of plant out of season or mixed match of plants for different soil types. Yeah, I mean, the trouble with show gardens is they do have to force the plants to look good at that particular time. And it's a problem we are considering as well. We're trying to work our way around it. But you are right. It doesn't necessarily make sense. But again, this is where taking ideas and inspiration and talking makes all the difference. Stuart says, having built 5 gardens, our best one was full of veg, our victory garden. We had lots of veg and an old-fashioned flowers, over 400 plants, 3 meters squared. 400 plants and 3 meters squared. I think we're looking at about 9 meters squared. So that's going to be a lot of plants. It's making me question it now. You're making me question it now. Anna Jones says, show gardens are more like a design competition. Exactly right. They look great, but nothing to do with real gardening. I don't think people copy them. Again, I couldn't agree with that more, because I do agree. I don't think they look real. But people can take inspiration or ideas from them to put into their own garden. Jenny says, I take photos of the bits I like, and that is what I take from it and get inspired. Tabo Stream says, most of show gardens aren't realistic for the average British 3-bed semi. Perhaps your show gardens aren't realistic, could be inspired by a wartime garden growing veg in wartime. That's been done too many times for my book. We've got our own ideas. I won't get into that just yet, but our ideas will come apparent. I do get garden envy, says Nicola, when we see these show gardens. I'm with you on that. Stuart says, my most expensive garden was £250. Most of the item in the garden was gifted. Absolutely. Jenny says, Chelsea, big funding stopped this year. Interesting to see what next year's show is like. Really, what's happened there? What's happened there? Nicholas says, thumbs up. Oh, yeah, please do give us a thumbs up, a like, a follow, subscribe, and all that jazz. Jenny says, Chelsea Gardens represent a charity, story, or message. Gardeners World Live, etc. represent gardening. I have to agree. I mean, I'm not been to Chelsea, but I do like what I see at Gardeners World Live. And in fact, Tabo Stream says the Francis Top Hill Garden at Gardeners World a couple of years ago now, when Turbo Stream and I looked at that, was mostly recycled. My aim for my home garden is it should use recycled materials. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that, again, I like about these show gardens. Realistic ones. Francis Topper, I remember seeing the sinks. She had loads of plants in sinks. And I went away and I thought, you know what, I could do that. And I've got several Butler sinks, Belfast sinks now, which I'm using which I'm using a lot for my herbs. And that was partly inspired by the Francis Top Hill Garden. Hasn't quite worked out as good as Francis's, but it's getting there. It is getting there. And that's the plan. That's the plan. Digwell has joined, and he says 9 meters squared or 9 square meters. Big difference. I think it's 9 square meters. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the details at the moment. But anyway, we won't get into that just yet. Stuart says, we could all grow some plants for your garden and then you pick the best and sell the leftovers. Not a bad idea, but I'm only collaborating. I'm only collaborating if we get the go-ahead, of course. Yeah, if we get the go-ahead. Now, Rob says Belfast sinks each fetch £100 plus around here. I was very lucky. So one of mine, I found some bloke giving it away on a Facebook marketplace. One was also here when I moved in. And another was, where did I get the other one? Oh, a friend of ours was demolishing a pub. And he asked if we wanted the Belfast sink that he had ripped out, which we said, yes, we have that. So all 3 of our Belfast sinks cost us nothing. Oh, no, we got 4. We got one more that my mother-in-law gave us as well. So all 4 of them have cost us nothing. And that's probably about 400 quid's worth at least. I do think, this is one of the things I've got to say, though, when it comes to doing these sort of projects, Marketplace is a great resource. You'd be amazed what people give away on there. Digwa says 3 meters by 3 meters. Yes, I can't remember the details, but I think 3 meters by 3 meters is what we are looking at, roughly. Nothing going on Instagram, but I keep checking anyway. So my next question with regards to show gardens is, when you look at a show garden, do they inspire you or do they feel too unrealistic? I know some of you already sort of answered this question, but let's get a bit more. Let's thrash this out a little bit more. Let's add some more meat to the bones. Don't forget, if you do want to or have an idea for a mission for next week, enter hashtag mission in the chat, and we could select your mission for next week. I don't think anybody's chosen a mission just or done it just yet. Nicholas says, I was offered a free Belfast sink recently. Too heavy for me on my own. Do see them for £30 to £50 as a rule here. Yeah, I say you can get them for free if you are lucky. Stuart says, I've done a Chelsea garden indoor that had with over 1,000 plants on it. We work together with other growers. Absolutely. So it's a lot of work, isn't it? And this is one of the things I don't want to go down the route of slagging off the designers that have built these show gardens, because there is a lot of work. There is a lot of smoke and mirrors as well, but it is a show garden. It's not a real garden, but there is a lot of work that goes in. A friend of mine who did one at Gardeners World 2-3 years ago, she was let down last minute by her builder, and she was laying a brick path. So she had to, she rolled up her sleeves and started laying the brick path herself until some of the other people building the garden came along and helped her. But there's at least a week of building these gardens in advance. Well, months of planning as well. So there's a lot going on, a lot more than what we realise. Jenny says, I always try and talk to the designer and read the brief. Absolutely. The brief is the important thing when it comes to these show gardens, because it tells you a bit more about what the designer was trying to achieve, what the designer wanted to do, and what it's all about. It tells you more of the story. And one of the big things I've said about show gardens is it's often about the story. The story has got to be the important thing, like most things. Turbo Stream says, most gardens are unrealistically, but possibly not to be copied, but elements could be copied, perhaps. So is this on the, do they inspire you? Has anybody been inspired by a show garden? As I've said, I know I've certainly seen things that I would like, or I've taken things away that I would like to do. I remember, it might have been last year, Gardeners World Live. I'll be honest, Gardeners World Live is a shows I tend to go to more than any of the others. So a lot of my garden show is based on that. But when I what was it? The pallet garden, where everything was made out of pallets, which looked great. And I thought that's something we could all do. But getting hold of pallets and taking them down is not as easy as it sounds. Stuart Jackson says, Malvern shows that 3 weeks build and in 10 days to take down. Turbo Stream says, I can't visualize ideas, so looking at designs can help me more. In my case, though, it confuses me more. So I've got to be honest, actually, Turbo Stream, on this comment, I'm exactly the same. I like the ideas, but I cannot necessarily visualize it in my own garden. I can't put it into practice so easily, which is one of the problems I do have, but I do get ideas from it. Jenny says, hashtag mission, design a metre square show garden, veg, bring wildlife in, bring the garden another week. Okay, that can be done. Let's check on Instagram. Nothing going on there. I know it does look frozen over there. If anybody is over on Instagram, apologies. I'll keep checking, but it looks like my screen is frozen there. Yeah, that could be a good mission that's gone into. You've got to remember that mission though. When we do the tombola at the end, we'll find out if that one is the winner. Hargrave Gas says, I take pictures of things I like, usually individual plants or support structures. That's a good point. I mean, I remember in the old days, before we had phones in our pockets all the time, it wasn't so easy to take photos unless you had a camera. Well, that's a ridiculous comment, isn't it? Unless you had a camera. Before digital cameras came along, I should say. But now we all have a camera in our pocket in the form of our phone. It's so easy to take pictures, isn't it? And move on. Rob says, we wanted our back garden done, and this bloke turned up in a brand new Range Rover. When I mentioned his car, he said, so I am not getting this job then. What was the problem with being in a brand new Range Rover? If he does a good job and the price is reasonable, I mean, he spent his money. What's the problem? What's the problem with brand new Range Rover? Or what was his perceived problem of the brand new Range Rover? I guess. Add a bit more to that. Add a bit more to that. Swig of coffee coming up. Rob says he was so expensive. There we go. That's the gist of it, isn't it? When it is so expensive. But what is so expensive? This is again one of the things I've said that for us, I think most of us, we're gardeners, we tend to do the work ourselves. That being said, we are trying to get quotes to replace our driveway now, so we could be falling into that trap. Could I do it myself? It'd be a hard job for me to do, but pay somebody to do it is something I will probably do. If he's expensive, I mean, I don't like going for the cheapest quotes. I like going for the best quote. The person that is going to do the best job, because you could get somebody cheap but does a crap job. You could get somebody expensive that also does a crap job. For me, it's more about finding the right person. Turbo Stream says, I've been searching ideas for my garden and downloading a few pics to help. Still can't work out a design. I have hard landscaping to alter, which is proving hard to work out in my mind. Yeah. Pinterest. I think Pinterest can be quite good for getting ideas, can't it? Yeah, Pinterest can be quite good. Totally know where you are coming from, says Digwell. And Rob says he was talking about 10K and this was 20 years ago. That does sound a lot. I mean, I don't know the size of your garden or anything, but 10K, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Like I say, I prefer to judge people on their job, not their prices. I'm sure people would find my prices too expensive if I was to charge what I think I'm worth. But then there's other people who would, I'm talking about in the fridge game here, people who would happily pay what I want because they know what I'm worth. Digwet says, I never bother with looking at show gardens when I go to Marvin Gardeners World Live, etc. Too many people to fight through. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the problems. That's why I like to get to these shows early. I always go to Gardeners World Live like 9 o'clock on the dot to get into these show gardens, take my photos before they get really, really busy. But they are sometimes a bit too busy to have a good look at these things. That is one of the big problems as well, I've noticed. I went to Malvern 6 years ago. It was a particularly interesting one, but yeah, very, very busy to have a good look at. Rob says, I don't mind people making a profit, but taking the piss is not on. Absolutely. Turbo Stream says, hard landscaping is expensive, as Rob found out. I'm not funding some new Range Rover. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always been the type. I don't like paying for anything. I'm pretty tight like that. But I mean, things like lanes, paving slabs and stuff, I've always done myself. But I've got to say, when it comes to the driveway out the front, I'm going to pay somebody to do that because I'm not going to do as good a job as me. Digrat says, I can't do that. Train times mean I have to arrive at 10:30 or later. One of the advantage, Digswell, I don't know if you know this, press pass and go on press day. Because then you get around when there's no public there. I've not been to a press day, but I've been to events afterwards and managed to stay on. So yeah, use your press pass a bit better. I know that's not for everybody. I'm fully booked up for Malvern this year, says Rob. So my next question I'm going to ask everybody, and this is something very, very close to my heart, is should show gardens include more real veg growing ideas? And if you say yes, what veg growing ideas would you like to see? I personally think there should be more vegetable gardens. I'm talking perhaps pottagers where there's a mix of vegetable and florals. Perhaps we've already mentioned a wartime garden, which there's quite a few of. I do think there should be more vegetable gardens, more veg growing ideas. Trying to think vertical gardening, hydroponics, perhaps throwing those in there. I don't know if they would necessarily get any points. What else? The trouble is, again, there is a lot of smoke and mirrors that goes on at these show gardens. For the points, it's like apple trees or fruit trees need to have fruit on them. So you often actually find like an apple is literally stapled onto the tree to make it look like the fruit is there. I don't agree with that, but that's what they have to do to get the points. It's a show garden at the end of the day. It's there to try and get points. Digwat says, yes, I get press passes, but the trains still arrive too late to beat the crowds. We don't all live in a city. LOL. I don't live in the city either. No, I mean, you can go, what is it, on the Wednesday for the press only event, which doesn't start till early afternoon, if I remember correctly. That's an idea anyway. Jenny says, can't wait for Gardeners World Live. 2 weeks to go. I can't wait either. I'm going 2 days this year. Me too. More veg in a mix of styles and sizes. What days are you going, Jenny? Is it the Thursday and the Sunday? The 2 days I'm going on I'm going. Anybody else going to Gardeners World Live, by the way? Anybody else going to Gardeners World? I'll be there on the Friday and the Saturday. Turbo Stream says, yes to veg gardens. I was going to mention pottagers too. So yeah, I think there needs to be more vegetable gardens. Kate says, I do get inspired. I would never expect to be able to do those gardens, but I take away ideas and photos so I can remember them. Absolutely. Turbo Stream says, my allotment is a traditional one with rows of veg, but I really need to work out in my mind how to do a potager garden. Good plan. Good plan. I think a potager garden can work really well if you can get that figured. Chili Gate, hi everyone. Sorry we're late. We've been trying to get some plants in after the heat of the day. Has been rather warm today, hasn't it? No sign of rain today, but I think we're going to get rain tomorrow. Turbo Stream says, I'm toying with going to Gardeners World Live. The Friday is the 13th. It is. I'll be up there first thing in the morning. Can't wait, actually. I really cannot wait. I really do enjoy Gardeners World Live. But yeah, I'll be up there Friday, Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to it. I have to say, I really am. Partly, I mean, I've got a slight advantage because I get to see lots of people I don't see that much, apart from you guys, of course. I'd love to see more people and more people like you guys there, or other shows you could go. Digwest says, smoke and mirrors with food photography too. Ask me how I know. How do you know? Like spraying fruit with glucose to simulate drops of water. Yeah, exactly. Smoke and mirrors goes on. It's about the show. It's not about what we really... well, it's not about real life, isn't it? It's about the show. It's about the story. That's why smoke and mirrors goes on. Am I right in saying that you probably feel that edible gardens are underrepresented in these sort of events? I have to admit, there does seem like there's a lack of vegetable gardens. There has been a few, but I don't think the vegetable gardens are a key feature. I'm remembering She Grows Veg a few years ago. She did a show garden at Gardeners World Live. I think she's done some at Chelsea as well. But the one at Gardeners World Live, I really quite liked. Everything was edible. One of the things I've been discussing with the people I'm collaborating with is actually we're going to have everything edible? Yes, but there's going to be stuff that people actually eat. One of the problems that I think when people try and do a show garden where everything's edible, they might use things that people don't really eat because they look good. I'm trying to think of an example. There's some edible. Well, let's use edible flowers as an example. Who here really eats edible flowers? Yet you'll be told tulips. The flowers on those are edible. Who here actually eats them? And this is something that I didn't really want. Turbo Stream says, you got any discount codes for Gardeners World Live? They are doing a 15% code. I did have a code. I think it's about 15% off as well. So I'll go with it. But I'll check when I've got a video coming up. I'll check it during there. Chili Cake says definitely mixing up veg and flowers is good. Those perfect rows of the just veg on the National Veg Society show garden just aren't reality. Yeah, that's annoyed me with the National Veg Society because the display doesn't seem to change. Doesn't seem to look right. Jenny says she grows veg got scored down as they were her own plants. Rules were to use nurseries. I don't think it was rules. That's the points thing. But yes, that you were right. I do remember. She said that she got scored down for not using her own plants, and the rules were to use. Yeah, she did lose points. Yeah, I do remember that. Digwa says she grows veg, can probably afford a show garden. Look at her seed prices. They are expensive. They are expensive. But all credit to her. You know, she's done really well for herself. They are expensive, but people seem to like them. I have never eaten a flower yet, says Turbo Stream. I'm trying to think of an example of a flower that you might eat. I think the only one that springs to mind would be globe artichokes, but who really eats those? Turbo Stream says, but my allotment veggies are mostly to freeze or store. Exactly. Try nasturtiums. Yeah, nasturtiums are a good example of something we can eat, isn't they? I've never grown nasturtium, Digwell. You've got to grow nasturtiums. Nasturtiums should be in every vegetable garden. They self-seed, they're edible, they are companion planting. They should be in every vegetable garden, in my opinion. Cauliflower, that's a good example, isn't it? That's a good example of a plant that you may not think of eating, but you could eat as a flower. But not go quite down the route I was thinking of. You know, you often get these show gardens, or you go through these phases where people are growing such and such because it's edible. What was it? I'm trying to think of an example. Anyway, now, my next question to you: what's your favorite design feature you've seen at a show garden? What has been your favorite design feature? I think my favorite design feature was probably the sinks from Francis Tophill's garden a few years ago. I liked that because I felt like it was something everybody could do. So the show garden was definitely one that I thought. Jenny says, tell me about it, Steve. Also, some listed as rare or new, but I've been growing them for years. I do like her talent, but I fear trendy. Don't know on that front. I mean, she's done well for herself. That's all I can say. I don't want to be negative about anyone, so she's done well for herself. I'm drinking the wrong drink. I got a coffee and I got a drink that we made for the recipe of the week coming up. Oh, that's better. That's better. Has everybody? I asked that question. I don't think I'm getting anything come through just yet. So, yeah, Jenny says my favourite was Pip's vegetable garden at Gardeners World Live last year. DIY shed, beds, all sorts. Was that the one where everything was out of pallets and it had that big cattle thing as well? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Turbo Stream says, I've only been to Gardens World Live and Malvern Springs, so not seen many show gardens. Yeah, I mean, if you do go Turbo Stream, have a good look at the show gardens, especially if you are looking for ideas. Digwa says, look at the price of her repackaged Tromboncino seeds. I need a second mortgage. I think she gets her seeds from Baker's Creek or something in America, isn't it? Anyway, Hargrave says, anyone who can make a business from growing veg gets my support, even if their seeds are a bit expensive. We want more people in horticulture. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We want more people in horticulture, especially the vegetable garden, because it doesn't get the love that I think it needs. I'm gonna go on this and say vegetable gardening should be front center of everything. I mean, in my opinion. So yeah, absolutely there. Jenny says, absolutely, you can't say anything other than she has done amazingly well. Yeah. Jenny says, pallets, shower curtain on shed, a bale, feeder, seat, etc. Yes, I do remember that now. I do remember that was one I referred to earlier, that with all the pallets. And pallets are great. They're a great resource for making show gardens, but they're not. I mean, they did well with that one because there was a lot of them and it was a big garden. We want more things that make people think a bit differently about using pallets. I'll get to my point in a little bit, actually. Kate says, I'm going Thursday. Oh, I'm not gonna see you on then either. That's a shame. Tabby Stream's never heard of She Grows Veg. It's probably because you're not on Instagram, but I think she's done a good job at marketing herself and marketing the veg that she grows. Kate says, chucking it down in Nottingham. And Digwa says, totally agree, I'll make enough to get by. Now, my final question on this subject, we're not going to lose the subject too much, but it's just more of a question. But if you could design a show garden, what would you want to include in it? Would you want it to be realistic, inspiration, or fantasy planting? Cost, access, practicality, are those key things that you would think about as well? And what about sustainability or purpose-driven design? What would you want to design into your show garden? Love to hear your thoughts on this. Love to hear what you would want to design into your show garden. What would it include? Turbo Stream says, I was on Instagram when it was for photography. Don't do social media these days. Yeah, I know. I'm really bad with social media. I love photography. I love videos. I love podcasts. I love audio, but I don't do enough on social media. I really don't. It's the time involved. It's just the time involved. Even though I only work 4 days a week, it just feels like I don't have the time to fit everything in anymore. Got to make my life easier. And social media is one of those that gets pushed to the wayside. But that being said, I want to do more on social media. I want to, personally, I want to push vegetable gardening more. So that's why I need to push on social media. Digwet says, no idea. I'd let AI do it for me. Designing a show garden with AI. That's not a bad idea. I wonder what it would do with my concept. By the way, don't forget, if you have a mission that you would like me to do for next week, put a message in the chat, starting with #mission, and then leave your mission in there. But remember that mission, because at the end we will do a draw, and whoever's idea wins that draw will then we'll do the mission next week. Jenny says, my show garden would be wildlife centered, grow veg, flowers, DIY, affordable and doable, rustic, pretty and taste delicious. Also a garden visitor could walk through and experience. So go more for the wildlife. This is a good idea. Veg, flowers, DIY, affordable and doable. Good ideas. Certainly a few ideas going on there. Digwell says, let AI design a show garden for you. Okay, I like that. I like that. Scott has joined, says, sorry, I'm late. No problem. You did let us know you might be late. So you've only got to do 100 words tonight of I will not be late again. But we'll let you off. We'll let you off. We're talking about show gardens, Scott. I've been asking the question, well, are show gardens, the main question are they inspiration or are they illusion? What's your thoughts? And the question I'm asking at the moment, if you could design a show garden, what would it be? What would it include? Turbo Stream says there was a thing called If This Then That, where you could set up an automatic script to post things on social media from one post. Yes, but then they changed the rules and started charging. It was too expensive. I got something I use for that. But yeah, I used to use If This Not Then That. But no, I've got something else I can do. So there. My Wi-Fi went down, so missed some. I'm asking the question, if you could design a show garden, what would it include now? Stuart says, if I was to do another show garden, I would only do an edible garden. I'm sure I could make it look pretty. Fantastic, fantastic. Digwell says, no good, buddy. 100% commitment on none at all. Oh, yeah. Hang on, Digwell, weren't you late? Or did I not see you at the beginning? Kate says, need more edible gardens for sure. Would also be nice to show things like composting, wormeries, and reducing waste in the garden, saving money as compost is so expensive. Oh, Kate, that is a very, very good idea. A very good idea. Yeah, very good idea. Scott says, I think you can take inspiration from them. If I was to do one thing, it would be an outdoor cooking / dining space. Yeah, again. So on that note, let's go. I've only got the one video to share with you. It's only a quick one, but it's the cook along for this week. Because we didn't get a mission from last week, and I'm going to do the rant live. Let's go to the cook along. So last night I started this week's recipe. I went out on my dog walk with Roxy and collected some elderflower heads. I got about 30 elderflower heads, which have all gone into this pan with a couple of chopped lemons and chopped limes. Now I'm just straining. Oh, I added some boiling water, 1.5 litres. And we're just going to strain that liquid off because today we now actually have to do the next part, which is adding sugar and cooking it. So that strained liquid, about 1.5 litres, because that's how much water we added, that goes back into the pan, and to that we're adding 2.5 kilos of sugar. Straight in, give it a bit of a mix. It's going to need a bit of cooking to make it into a syrup, so all that sugar will then dissolve into the liquid, and really that is all it is to make this elderflower cordial. What we'll have to do, once it's all cooked down, I'm stirring it constantly, well I was, but once it's all cooked down, we'll leave it to cool. We then take that liquid and we'll turn it into drinks. Indeed, I turned it into this drink. You may have seen me drinking earlier today. This is elderflower cordial. So basically, this has got about quarter filled this glass up with that elderflower cordial mix, and then topped it up with water. I make this every year. It's one of my favourites. We can forage the elderflowers quite easily. What does it taste like? Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. There's not as much elderflower flavour as usual, but it is one of my favourite drinks. I've got to make it every year because it just brings back that flavour of summer. It just makes me feel good. We didn't add citric acid, which I normally do add but we didn't do it this year because we're trying to avoid things like that. So we're going to freeze a lot of it to use later on. Right, let's get back to the conversation, the Shogun conversation. Digwa says, I'm like Gandalf the Wizard. I'm never late. I appear when I want to. Kate says, the Seed Advent calendar was from She Grows Veg. Yes, I remember that. It was quite expensive calendar, I thought, but the seeds you got looked brilliant. Stuart says, a Shogun for me is to take ideas from my own garden or the school one, but not so much of them is out of reach of most people. But so much of them is out of reach for most people. I agree. That being said, if we take Chelsea, and I said this last week, I think, Chelsea is for people who have money. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in having money and paying somebody to do your garden. That's what Chelsea is for. The shows that for people who don't have money are probably, or have that sort of money, I should say, are probably more of the other shows that we go to. Turbo Stream says, I think show gardens aren't realistic. I think a show gardens aren't realistic, should be able to be built by anyone. Cool. Agree with that as well. Trouble with outdoor cooking, you need a shelter for the wintertime cooking. Yeah, true. And Jenny says, we need to do a veg army garden, a square meter garden, each to show different styles, needs, ideas, and experiences. That would look amazing. I'm gonna use next year as a bit of a experiment. If I get to do this show garden, to learn what it's all about, and if we are successful, then perhaps we can do a veg army garden one year as a group. Maybe not next year. It's too late for this year. Maybe not next year. Maybe the year after. But as a group, if anybody would be interested in that, we'll come up with an idea of that. Turbo Extreme says, these designer gardens take a team of builders a good week to build. So what hope has the ordinary gardener got? Not necessarily, because I do know people who are not professional designers. There was a lad last year, I climbed Mount Snowdon with him in the end, Ben. He did it all on his own. He did get certain sponsors, of course, but he did it on his own. He's not a designer. He just enjoys gardening, so it can be done. He actually had chickens on the plot, which were fantastic. Real live chickens running around his show garden. Chili Kate says, we had some lovely elderflower cordial at our community garden event yesterday that some of the team had made with elderflowers from our site. They're lovely, aren't they? I do love elderflower cordial. It's got to be made every year. Digwa says, looks nice. Too much sugar for me, unfortunately. Bloody diabetes. I did think about when I was making it. I was trying to think of a way I can reduce the amount of sugar, but it's got to use the sugar for the syrup. Chili Cake says, in my Facebook memories today was a recipe from my sister for elderflower sorbet that I've yet to try. Oh, please send me that recipe. That sounds lovely. Scott says, elderflower cordial, my favourite. I tried to make elderflower champagne once. I made it, yeah, with disastrous consequences. I got impatient and added yeast. All glass bottles exploded. Yes, I did that. It was in my old house. I tried making elderflower champagne. I used bottles that weren't really, they were squash bottles, and they all popped the lid off with the power, the pressure. Nicholas says, I think show gardens should have a budget section with max spend to help those on low incomes. Yep. I'll come to that in a moment, actually, because it's getting the right time. Digwa says, I watch a gang of people raping all the flowers off a whole row of elderberries in black bin bags. That's a bit taking a pee. When I said there will be no berries in autumn, they said they don't care. They get paid per kilo now. That is wrong. That's actually illegal. If they're out in the wild, then doing that and getting paid for it is illegal. That's wrong. Very, very, very wrong. Nicholas says £500 as a budget for the show garden. And then Hargrave has come up with a mission as well. Build an innovative pea or bean support. Love it. Love it. We've actually got through, I think, at least 3 missions so far. So the draw that we're going to do in about half an hour's time should be fun. Got more comments. it didn't move up. Kate says, also include a photography display highlighting the beauty of veg as a feature. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a very good idea, Kate. I like that as well. A £500, £1,000 garden, etc. Nice one. Yep. Kate says, I'm doing macro photography at the moment, and it's great just in the garden looking at our pollinators and lesser loved plants. Yeah. Yeah. Macro photography has great ideas. Oh, I like that idea, though. Diglett says, I made marrow yum once and the marrow exploded. Yeah, we've all done it, haven't we? We've all made things that have exploded without reason. So I think now is probably the good time to share with you the discussion I've had with the people that I'm collaborating with on this show garden for next year. Now, I do want to say it may not happen. We've unofficially been given a nod to say that we can do it. It'd be at Spring Fair. We've unofficially been given a nod to say that we could do it. But that doesn't mean it definitely will happen. Anybody that knows these things could change. Over on Instagram, Tommy's Allotment and Annie Hart 3037 has joined. Welcome along. We're talking about show gardens. But yeah, we have unofficially been given a nod to say that we will be making a show garden next year. And the area, I'm sure it was 3 meters by 3 meters, 9 square meters. Our plan is to only use the budget that the organisers give us, and that's £200. This is why we're starting to grow the plants ourselves, because that £200 is not going to go very far at all. But we're using it as a reason behind our story. So £200, as I said, not much money to build a garden on, but if we can do it, we think it would look great. But the story behind it as well is that £200 is something that everybody could achieve. And we want everything to be edible and functional and to be useful. The thinking behind that is that we could portray this as somebody that's just bought their first house. And we all know how much of a struggle it is when you first buy a house, don't have much money. You really don't have much money to spend in the garden and do the garden up. So our thinking is if we could do that on £200, it's representative of that. So there's going to be a lot of finding stuff for free, growing from seed as much as we can. Going to be difficult to get it ready for May, of course, but that's all part of the challenge. And our entire thinking is that it's going to be a realistic garden. It's going to portray people, as I said, who've just moved into their first house. They want somewhere that they can call their own, their first garden, but at the same time use it to feed themselves and things like that. We don't want to use any of our contacts either. We don't want to say I could call up some of the people I know who run. I use Autopilot. I'd probably call them up and say, we're doing a show garden. What can you give us? We don't want to do that. We want everything to be done off our own backs, so it is representative of the real person. This is where I've been going with this conversations we've had tonight. There's been a lot of you sort of saying that you don't find it very inspirational, you find it unreal. We want it to be realistic. So what would you do in that case? Let's throw that out to you. £200 garden, £200 to spend on a show garden. Forget about the transportation or hotels or anything like that. Just £200 on the garden. What would you do? Digwell says, call it the £200 garden. That's not a bad idea, is it? Not a bad idea at all. Stuart says, can you get donations for the garden, i.e. hard landscaping? No. We could. Don't get me wrong, we could, but we don't want to do that. We want to do everything as cheap as we can get it. So our idea is that we're probably going to do a brick path. And I've got a load of bricks in my garden that are basically I need to get rid of. I was going to throw them, take them down the tip, but we're going to hold on to them. We're going to go through Facebook Marketplace and try and find people who would give or take on or give away those bricks, and we're going to try and use those. That's our idea. That's where we're going with it. I would plant potatoes to work the soil for me in certain areas. The thing is, with a show garden, The plants that you see in the show garden are actually in a pot. This is one of those tricks of smoke and mirrors. All the plants are in pots. The pots is just buried beneath the soil. And there's a reason for that. It makes it easier to transport. It makes it easier to actually get into place. It also means that when they take it down, they can sell those plants quite easily. So we could do potatoes in pots, of course. In fact, that could work. Thinking about it, for May, we could have a good amount of potatoes. I'm going to have to make a note of that. But what would you do? £500, £200, sorry. What would you do? I've got to make a note of that. Stuart Jackson says, a new build garden should have areas for barbecue, relaxing, plus veg and flowers. But I think they should all be in season. This makes it easier to build. Yep, this is exactly what we're thinking of. Barbecue might be a bit difficult, but yeah, might it be? Could we come up with things? I think we could come up with things. Yeah, in seasonal. I mean, again, that would be great to have everything in season. Beginning of May is a really difficult time to get anything in, though. Anything that is in season at the beginning of May, it's just a little bit too early, isn't it? Turbo Stream says, anything can reuse is obvious, pallets, bricks, etc. I am biased, but a cheap seed bed, like I made out of recycled material, would be a good addition. Thank you. I'm putting that down as well. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is, oh, you're giving me a lot of good ideas, actually. I mean, we don't have a huge amount of room. Like I said, 9 meters squared off the top of my head. It sounds like a big space. It's not that big. Not that big at all. Scott says, make seed beds of an area for seeds. So it's like planning ahead for the year after. Yeah, I'm going to be doing this seed bed idea. I have to admit, I do like this seed bed idea. I'm just trying to figure out the way we can make it work for the Shogun, but I'm pretty sure there is a way we can make it work. Jenny says, would the show be providing the compost? Many do. If yes, I'd spend it on plants and free cycle the rest. A tree or two, plants of all the varieties and stages of growth. So they do supply the compost that is in the actual bed itself, but obviously the compost in the plants we would have to supply. So as I said, Shoguns, the plants are in pots and we'll have to supply that compost. Digwell says that is what Melvin Spring Shoguns are. That is why Melvin Spring Gardens are a bit false. You are already thinking about shortcuts. Yeah, we are already thinking about shortcuts. We're trying to do things that would work in May. Yeah. You are right. It is about shortcuts. It's a Shogun at the end of the day. This is why it's got to be done. What we're hoping to do is actually grow the plants that would naturally be ready in May. So one example would be leeks. I've sown leeks in May. I read that Charles Dowding was harvesting his leeks in the following May. So I'm hoping that we can replicate that, and things that we would overwinter, garlic, elephant garlic, maybe some onions, potatoes, which we could sow a bit early in the greenhouse. Those sort of things is what we're thinking of that might be just a little bit different, but ready for that sort of time of year. Nicholas says, water collection, old metal water tank off a roof. Yeah, that's what we've got to try and keep an eye out for. I mean, it's the centerpiece and things like that. Stuart says, our raised beds at school are made from recycled materials. Also, it should be a working garden. Agreed. We want it to be a working garden. We do want it to be a working garden. Turbo Extreme says, my first seedbed was 4 lengths of pallet made into a rectangle with a mesh lid. Doesn't need to be complicated. No, it's got to look the part. That's what I'm saying. It's got to look the part with plant seedlings already in there, but we can work on that. The compost the show gives you is just poor topsoil or used compost. Yes, not going to be anything great. It's just there to look the part, isn't it? Turbo Stream says, add broad beans to your seed list. Broad beans. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to. I hate writing things down while doing this show, but you've given me so many good ideas. I've got to. Digwell says, what I mean is that a new homeowner could look at your show garden and think they will have the same a year later. So yeah, we will be doing leaflets on that very thing. We will be explaining to it that, well, actually, no, we could have that a year later because we're going to be growing it ourselves. But we are going to have leaflets on that very thing. We want it to be crystal clear what we've done and why. But yeah, you are right. They could think it's the same a year later, and it may not be. But we are going to try and have everything that is in season at that time of year, everything that looks the part at that time of year, with prior planning, with thinking ahead. Scott says, what about having plants that would be going to seed at that point with the ideas of collecting seed for that year or year after the leek, etc.? Yep, absolutely. Flowered brassicas and things like that, things that have gone to seed would be great idea. Oh, I like that as well. Oh, I do like that. That's gone down. Stuart says, mushroom trays are good for planting in for show gardens. I used them in the past. Thank you. Let's take that as well. Digger, no need to write it down. Just read the comments later. Yeah, good. That's a good point. Kate says, sowing seeds that are collected from previous year's plants saves money. Yep, we could do that. We could do that indeed. Turbo Stream says Swiss chard, kale, cauliflower, leeks, onions, garlic, cabbage, etc. Yeah, these are all the sort of things that we're thinking of that we could actually grow to be ready for the show without too many problems. This is great. You guys are really getting on board with this, aren't you? Companion planting, Nicholas says as well, to throw that in there. Yeah, I think there's a lot of ideas that are coming out from you of things that we could be doing. Lots of ideas indeed. What's the time? Coming up to 7:05. Rob says, we have just had new neighbours. The garden was great. We just had, I think that's new neighbours. Some veg pond and some flowers. The new owners have ripped it all out and slabbed it with plastic grass. However, it's their garden. What can you say? It's their garden. They can do with it what they like. But plastic grass, honestly, I hate the stuff. I hate the stuff. What can you do? But it's their garden. It's their garden. What can you do? Small pond to add wildlife. Is a first-time homeowner going to have a small pond? Might do. Maybe the saying, well, if we can get a pond for free, then we will do that, I guess. Jenny says that plastic grass should be banned, dangerous, horrible, and here forever. Except it's not here forever, is it? It breaks into little pieces and what have you. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it. As you could probably tell. Herbs would be a good one. Things like chives, rosemary could be in flower at that time, so adds a visual as well as food. Good idea there, Scott. Actually, very good idea. Very good idea. Nick, there was talk of banning plastic grass in gardens. I don't think it will ever happen. I wouldn't want to live in a world where we have that law either, personally, but I don't think they should exist. I hate plastic glass. Yeah. Thumbs down, as Anna Jones says. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, watched the bloke water his entire plot in 5 minutes today. Astonishing. Is this an education problem? I don't know. Washing up bowl pond is very effective. Yeah, but not very imaginative at the same time, is it? Sorry, that's what I meant. Microplastics here forever. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the football clubs are now getting rid of plastic grass. I didn't think they ever had plastic grass. On Instagram, Little Black and White Cat joined. That's Rebecca. Hope you are well. And Annie is also in tears over the plastic glass. The plastic grass neighbours should be crying in shame. I completely agree. I hate this stuff, but it's their garden. What can you do? You know, do we have the right to tell people what to do in their own gardens? I don't think we do, unless it directly affects us, i.e., spraying weed killer and the drift affects us. It's a hard one, that. It is a hard one. Rob says it took me 15 minutes to water a 10-foot section of our back garden after I planted some petunias. How lovely. But yeah, watering is not a quick job. I've got to go and water my garden when we finish here. It's going to be out there for a good half hour. Stuart says, is garden going to be outside? Yes, it will be. If so, remember the turf around the outside of the garden as they mark you down for poor edging. I'm hoping we're not going to have any turf, but I could be wrong. But yeah, the people I'm collaborating with, they approached me. They've actually done this. They're professional gardeners. I'm really excited actually, because I've seen some of their work and it's stunning. If anybody saw from Gardener's World Spring the Alice in Wonderland garden, that's the people I'll be working with. Kate says, shows how veg gardening can be made accessible for folks with mobility issues, i.e. a raised bed raised a bit higher so it can be done from a seated position in gardening for all. Yeah, again, I like that idea. I'll have to chat with everyone about this. No point moaning about artificial grass until we all stop using plastic seed trays, pots, dibbers, watering cans, etc. All deposit microplastics. You are right. As always, Digwell, you are right. I agree. Hargrave, I got a bit of abuse on Facebook when I criticised plastic grass. So many people have it these days. They are selling plastic grass rakes in Tesco's. They're selling plastic grass in Tesco's, aren't they? It's just so wrong. It's just so wrong. I can understand why people might want it, I guess. It's just not for me. Just not for me at all. Ah, that's better. That's better. That Elderflower Cordial is lovely. Okay, so I think it is time for Richard's Rants. I haven't done a video for this one. And my rant has actually, my original idea for this rant has changed throughout the week. So I'm going to go with the rant that I had on Friday. And I may have done this rant before with you guys. I can't quite remember. But my rant that I had on Friday is I went into wasn't a garden centre, but it had a garden centre attached to this shop. It's a big brand that's all over the country. Now, I wanted just some cheap plastic pots, quite large. Reason for it, but just some cheap plastic pots. And I mean cheap. When I went into this shop that sounds like an orange, and I went into the garden centre outside. They had pots all over the place, but not a single price tag on the pots. I didn't know if the pot I was looking at was going to be 30 quid or 3 quid. I was not happy at all. I spent ages sort of looking around, umming and ahhing, pulled out my phone to look on the internet to see if they had the price online. I could not find it. So you know what I did? I got up and walked out of there. I went to another shop, a better shop, a proper garden centre where everything was priced. But I was annoyed. Why do a shop sell stuff without a price tag? What is so hard in putting a price tag on an item. What is so hard? Everybody wants to know how much it is. You don't want to really turn up at the garden, at the checkout and say, hey, I want to buy this pot. How much is it? And then turn around and say, no, I don't want it at that price, because it feels awkward, doesn't it? It feels awkward. So I wasn't happy with that. That's my rant for the week. What do you guys think on that? Rob says we have a lot of plastic grass that's around our way. Yep. I know there was a road in Brighton where there was several houses that had plastic grass, and it was because one person was actually selling it, so they all used it. Scott says wood chip paths that are cheap to do and after a year will turn to compost. Good for a new house garden. If you can get wood chip, that is. If you can get the wood chip for free, that is. Jenny says my mate's neighbour's kids burnt their feet on fake grass. It's nasty stuff. Yeah, it's nasty stuff. Is there any plastic grass? No, but that might come up in the future. That might be a future rant if it doesn't turn up again. Stuart says watering is also an issue with show gardens. So could you think about pottering a watering system into the show garden? We will think of that. Because we've got to look after that. We've got to think of that. Digwell says, I have it in my back garden as the area is totally unworkable. Plus, I can tidy it up with a vacuum cleaner. Digwell, as I said, it's your garden. You do what you like with it. I don't like the stuff. And obviously, I see why you're getting a little bit defensive. We meant no offense. I meant no offense at all. So I apologize if I offended you, Digwell. That's all I'm going to say. No, Nicola, no prices. Richard, it must be free. Typical dad joke, that, isn't it? I did think that. Digwell says, after hearing so much about the range on this show, I went there. They took over home base near me. What a load of rubbish. It seems like they stock the worst of every other store, Wilco, etc. See, I've got mixed feelings on the range. They can be good. They are almost a replacement for Wilco. They did buy a lot of Wilco stock. And with Homebase, I think they've brought a lot of Homebase stock as well and starting to sell that. And they've also brought some of their old Homebase branches. Are the range the best shop in the world? Absolutely not. I think, wasn't it the other? If you want it, they sell it or something along those lines. But it's not always the case. They can sell cheap products or products at a good price of what you want, but are they the best? Absolutely not. Chili cake, Richard, we found the same at that shop, but with plants like you, we just didn't buy them. Absolutely. That's how they make loads of money, by selling crap. Absolutely. I mean, they do sell branded stuff, and I think, what did I go into the shop for? There was a reason I went into there. Well, cheap plant pots. Just needed some cheap plant pots. Didn't sell them. Didn't have them. High-grade gas, as the cheap compost was pretty much all wood chip, considering buying some as a cheap mulch. Yeah, I've heard that before with as the compost. Has anybody had any problems with compost so far this year? Has anybody had, like we've had credit cards and stuff like that in the past? Has that happened to anybody so far this year? Or is there an improvement? Turbo Stream says, I often don't buy an item if the price is unclear in the shop. I've walked out of so many shops where there is doubt on the price. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Stuart Jackson says, wood chip, just collect a few Christmas trees, pop them in the shredder. People will happily give them to you in January. Question is, as a first-time buyer, who's likely to have a shredder? Digwell says, geez, it's only 3 meters of the stuff, but my carpet loves it as there are no dirty footprints. So in some cases, I can see why plastic grass, I'm beating myself up a bit here because I feel very awkward for upsetting Digwell. Well, there may be cases where plastic grass, if it's a small area and the lawnmower isn't worthwhile, but yeah. I'm going to try and change the subject off that because I feel rather upset, embarrassed. Digger says, even Leia, my granddaughter, said the plants looked rubbish in the range. Yeah, they used to actually be quite well looked after, I have to say. They used to be really well looked after in the range, but in recent years, they've rapidly gone downhill. You used to be able to buy like the plug plants at a very reasonable price in the range, but they have gone downhill rather rapidly in there. It's as if the people who had been trained to look after the plants are not being trained anymore. Used to be quite good because, like Wilco's as well, towards the end of the season, I used to be able to get plants from there for like 10p. So there was good reasons to go in there. And I'm talking like fruit trees and bushes, which, built most of my front garden now of. But they've gone downhill very rapidly, in my opinion. Stuart says, yes, the bag of compost I used yesterday had big bits of plastic inside. I will be doing an email later. There we go. This is the type of conversations we need. Turbo Extreme says, I bought a trowel from a shopping question. It bent on the first use, yet in a German supermarket, they were selling far superior handles for $1.99. I went back and bought more for the allotment. Again, I bought trowels from a garden centre that have not lasted. I bought a rake from a garden centre, actually. It didn't last. Again, I'm not going to blame that on the specifics. It's bad manufacturer. Jenny says, I found a lot of compost is very cakey and thick this year. Different brands tried many too thick for seeds. Yeah, I'm having trouble with seeds this year, actually. Seeds in the ground, not germinating. Turbo Extreme says, I bought a peat multi-purpose compost this year. The previous year's peat-free was all rubbish. I've been using Rocket Grow, and I'm quite happy with Rocket Grow. It's not the cheapest compost, but I'm quite happy with it. Digwell says, there are a few YouTube channels saying they still have priolid poisoning from bagged green waste compost. That's the weed killer, isn't it? I've not had that myself, so interest. I'm sure it does go on though. B&M plants have improved. Can't say I've really looked at the plants at B&M, to be fair. Can't say. Rob says, I bought some fuchsias from my local co-op and they are doing well. That's surprising. Digwell, I'm not upset, but I will never watch your show again. Digwell, please don't do that. We love you, really. I don't take offense either, Digwell. Oh, Turbo, have you got plastic grass as well? Sorry, I only use peat-based compost. Fair enough. Many reporting poor germination with many seeds this year. I have found, so I sowed a lot of root crops directly in the soil, as well as runner beans and French beans directly in the soil, and they haven't germinated. But if I've taken those same seeds or from the same pack and sown them in my veggie pod or in pots, they have germinated. So I think it has got more to do with the dry spring. The dry spring, I think, is the real problem there. My opinion. Love you, Digwell, says Jenny. No plastic grass here, thankfully. Phew, we didn't upset you. I didn't upset you. Right. I love you too, Digwell. Here we go. Right, we've got about 10 minutes left of this show. I'm going to give you one final warning. If you have come up with a mission for next week, then do the hashtag mission followed by your mission. But remember your mission, because we're going to do the draw in about 2 minutes' time. It's going to be a bit different on how we do this, but I'm hoping this is going to work out for the best. And a bit of fun to it. And I hope all these missions, what I want to do is try and encourage you to do the same. And next week, we can judge everybody's efforts. So I was coming up with some ideas of missions that I could tackle for everybody. Or get everybody involved in these missions each week, and then we could sort of send in photos and judge who has done the best. That is something I still want to do. I haven't worked out the details, but it's something I still want to do. We haven't done photos yet either. I will have to buy a new shell suit to go to my local B&M. Love the place, but I feel so overdressed. Yeah, absolutely. Rob says bad germination is down to the seeds of lack of water. I think it's down to the lack of water in the soil. Absolutely. Digwell, please send photos. Seed suppliers normally. Nicholas, it's just to let you know, had the first 3 chicks this year survive. Lost the first one, early days for them, and hopefully more. Excellent. So we will have a look. I think it's time. Digwell, you need a onesie. Oh dear. And don't do that. Please don't do that. While I'm enjoying this Elderflower cordial, I have to say. Right. Do we think it is time to do the draw? We've still got time if you got it. I'll show you how we're going to do this. Let's do this like this. So StreamYard, the software I use for, not even software really, the software I use for this, they do have this sort of tombola function. So I thought we'll grab onto that and see if we could use it. So let's go to it and we've got 2 entries. That's wrong because I counted 3. Let's see what we've got. It's between Digwell and Hargrave. Winner is Digwell. It says Digwell's idea for... it says Digwell's idea, which was the AI garden, if I'm not mistaken, is the winner. But Jenny came up with one right at the beginning. Why didn't that turn up? Let's see if I can see that. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Oh, it might be because you used a capital M. I wonder if that's the problem. Why didn't that come up? That's the only thing I can see that's different. Let's have a look. I'm just scrolling through the comments and seeing if I can see it anywhere. Oh no, Hargrave used a capital M as well. That's weird. That is weird. Anyway, you got the idea. So next week's mission is to get AI to design a show garden. We can do that. Is there AI for that? Is there an AI for that? Let me know. Let me know if anybody has any ideas on what AI to use for that. There we go. Digwell, you need a onesie. I think I read that one. We need a photo of Digwell gets a onesie. Or my Obi-Wan Kenobi outfit in B&M. I'd love to see that, actually. That would be funny. Good luck with the chicks. Love the day-old chicks. Yeah, absolutely. Jenny says, I know when I'm not wanted. I don't understand why that didn't come out. Didn't come up at all. Lost one at 4 days. I'm so upset, and the other 3 doing so much better. It's always hard when animals die, isn't it? Hey. Digler says, always wanted here, me dear. TurboStream mission, buy some new software. Software is probably the wrong word because it's an internet based, which is why I like it, because I can technically do it from anywhere. Love you, Digwell. Well done, Digwell. There we go. So design an AI show, or get AI to design a show garden. I wonder what software we can use for that. Let's take a look at your photos. That's something else we need to do. Your photos. Where's the buttons gone? There we go. So first of all, Digwell, he discovered the a mineralized straw garden mulch, which was on discount at, I can't remember, I think where it was. I don't know if it's still on discount, but we've spoken about mulches in the past. I've used Strolch myself. It's very, very, very good, just a little bit pricey. By the way, anybody got a recipe or topic that you would like to share for next topic and recipe for me to cook next week, and a topic. Anybody got any ideas of something they would like to talk about next week? Stuart's actually managed to get some peas indoors. He's harvested them and got them indoors, which is almost impossible with peas. Lawrence noticed this on another group, and it's interesting. It's showing that how the sort of squash seeds, how they are pushed into the ground when they are sown, affects the loss or affects the plant. It's quite interesting article, actually. And it's not something I've really ever given any thought of. Chili Phil has got his chilies planted out, as you can see here, or I should say Chili Kate as well, but Chili Phil was one that posted it, and 6 chilies there. They look fantastic, I have to say. I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on with. Kate has got her first harvest of lettuce from her raised beds. Looks absolutely brilliant, I've got to say. It looks very lush and crisp, those lettuce as well. Now, Nathan is getting a little bit, I can't remember if I shared this photo last week or not, but he's getting a bit annoyed over his overwintered onions that have started bolting. It happens, doesn't it? But it is annoying. Now, Jenny saw this at her local agricultural show, which, funny enough, something we've been talking about as well. I particularly like this photo because, of course, it involved lettuce and edibles. Now, please do keep sharing your photos. You can post them in our Facebook group. It's sent to me via social media or email me, richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. That's richard@veggrowpodcast.co.uk. Where were we? Right, Rob says, years ago, I used to go to a small holding when hens got brooding and lay on the eggs. I used to love watching all the new chicks. Slightly off topic, our neighbour always has seagulls nesting every year on their roof. Well, one of the babies is down in the driveway at the moment, and we don't know what to do about it. Digwat says, when you use AI, make sure you tell AI everything: size of plot, types of plants, intended audience, etc. The more you specify, the better it will be. Absolutely. And that's the key thing with AI. The more you specify, the better it will be. But what AI platform could I use for that? That's what I'm wondering at the moment. Digwat says, Stroach at less than £10 a bag is well worth buying. Absolutely. Stuart says, I forgot to post my broad beans harvest. Sorry, it's too late. I have eaten them. Greedy. Oh, hiccups now. Turbo Stream says, I repeat my recipe of the week to be an egg and toast. One day you'll be desperate for a recipe idea. I might have to start doing a draw for the recipes, mightn't I? Is that offer still on at payday? I'll get myself some Stroach. Roasted radish recipe. Did somebody suggest that before? But yeah, we could do roasted radish. I think that's an idea. Jenny says there were mini gardens made by the military families, edibles that can move house with them. Oh, wow. Wow, that's a great idea. Mini gardens made by military families that can move house with them. That is interesting as well. Fox will get it, Richard, talking about the baby seagull. And 7 schools involved all around 2 local bases. Absolutely. Digwa says the link is on their site, but it only lasts 2 days. But they cycle the offers between 3 group members: TNM, Dubbies, Suttons. So check all 3. There we go. Thank you, Digwell. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come up with a subject for next week, and it's all actually spacing between plants is something I want to talk about. How much spacing between plants? I will work out the details, but it's basically, do you pay attention to how much space you give your plants? Is it as important as people make out? That sort of thing. We're going to do the roasted radish recipe and the AI show garden. That will be next Sunday at 6. I think we've done everything. I'm sure we have. Yeah, we have. I think it is time for me to get on out of here, go water the garden before having a bath and going to bed. Thanks so much, everybody. It's been great having a chat. Please do encourage more people to come along and share their thoughts. We'd love to have more audience. and things like that. Right, guys, you take care. Speak to you again next Sunday at 6.